today we're going to be exploring how to launch a global career, and I'll be providing you with some tips and insights on things that you can do now to prepare yourself for a global career after you graduate. My name is Jessica Rutkowski, and I am a University Partnerships Manager at Virtual Internships and CRCC Asia. I am a really passionate professional in the education abroad industry, and I truly believe that the experiences and the lessons that you learn from living and working abroad can really help you realize your full potential. I took advantage of a lot of the opportunities that I'll be talking to you about today while I was in college and even now in my professional work life. I've gone on some academic and athletic trips, semester study abroad, and right now I'm able to travel internationally for work a lot. But when I was in college, I really wish that I had knew more about certain opportunities and that I had taken the time to do some more research about the opportunities available to me, so that I could have started on a path of a global career a lot sooner. So that's what I'm really going to be sharing with you today. So to begin, I want to talk to you a little bit about the various types of global work that you can pursue, because there are quite a few options out there. Some of them are more short-term, temporary positions. Some of them are more long-term, permanent positions. Some of the types of options are more flexible in the types of work that you're allowed to do abroad, while others are more strict about the industries that you can work within. There's really no right or wrong way to pursue a global career. It's really what's most important, that is that it benefits you personally and professionally. So one of the ways to work abroad is to volunteer or to teach English. And you can do this with support from some really well-known organizations such as the Peace Corps or ITTT. And to do this type of work is a very honorable and prestigious option, as they're both very demanding on your personal and professional lives, and you're doing this in order to serve others. It's also a really great way to do a gap year after you graduate, and to be able to still earn money and to work and gain some cultural and professional experiences before you enter into the workforce for the career that maybe you went to school for. Additionally, you can intern abroad or remotely with an international company. And the good news is that you are already doing this on your virtual international internship program. And maybe you chose to do this program because your plans this summer were canceled due to COVID, but that's okay, because with both an international internship abroad or remotely, you are gaining such critical industry experience through your internship and gaining exposure to a new business culture that you wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. Additionally, you are building great professional networks through your supervisor and your coworkers that can potentially help you down the road with any future career or future roles. And also, it's allowing you to gain cross-cultural competencies by learning how to effectively communicate and work with professionals from very different backgrounds and experiences from you, and who have very different expectations in the workplace from your own. You can also apply for a working holiday visa, and this is something that I absolutely wish I knew about when I was in college. It's a really incredible opportunity for recent graduates that dozens of countries across the globe offer, and most commonly what it applies to is a one-year visa post-graduation, allowing you to gain professional experience abroad while really immersing yourself in this country's culture, and also allowing you to travel to other places during this time period. So countries like New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, South Africa, Costa Rica, they all offer these types of opportunities. And a lot of them are only for a year, but some of them do offer them up until the age of 30. So every country has its own rules and regulations about how you can obtain a working holiday visa for how long. Sometimes it depends on the type of passport you hold. So this is a really, really good opportunity that I would encourage you to explore during your senior year of university, and to do the research looking into what exactly you need to obtain, any documents, what the criteria is to allow you to participate on a working holiday visa. And then you can also work for an international company, and this can mean one of two things. You can either work for a company that is actually located abroad, or you can work for a company that is in your home country that has international offices and opportunities for you to go and visit these international offices, or for you to be able to transfer there. And what's so great about working for an international company is that it allows roles that don't seem international in nature to be able to have these opportunities. So for example, accounting isn't very international in nature, but a lot of the large accounting firms have many offices all over the world. So you can go and visit your team there for a few weeks and learn how they operate, or you can ask your employer about relocation possibilities. So when you're applying for companies and you're going through the application and hiring process, it's really important to ask about what the types of opportunities are if this is something that's really important to you. And finally, just in the world that we live in today, even prior to COVID, which has moved everyone remote, more than 60% of the workplace enjoyed some sort of remote work on their daily basis, which really allows for more freedom and flexibility when it comes to travel. So positions that allow you to do freelance work and work from all over the world have become so popular, and an even trendier phenomena that some people are taking opportunity is what's called the remote year, where people are actually working for a whole year remote in 12 different countries. So one new country each month of the year, and still they're able to do their work and to travel and to do the things that they're passionate about. Of course, there are a few obstacles when it comes to working abroad that you should be aware of before pursuing this type of career. I'd say one of the biggest ones is maintaining your relationships with your friends, your family, maybe a significant other. It can be really hard for an extended period of time. So it's something to think about and consider before you pursue a global career. And if you go for it, then it's important to have a really strong support system. So friends and family that are encouraging you to go for it and that are willing to make the effort to keep the relationship going. Another thing to consider is how different your banking and the tax system will be abroad. It might require doing a lot of research and figuring out how exactly it'll work. It's just a little unexpected thing that might not be as obvious as some of the other obstacles, but definitely something to still consider. As well as adjusting to new business norms, which you may already be experiencing right now in your virtual internship, learning how other countries and cultures conduct business and making sure that you are following these practices and etiquettes. Working in a global environment also means that you have more competition when it comes to securing a job. You're not just competing with local competition, but you have competition from all over the world, which may make it harder to find a position and land a job. Also, an obvious one is language barriers. If you don't speak the native language of the country you're applying within, it might make it really difficult or even impossible to find a job. So gaining some language skills would be of a benefit to you. And then finally, there are the visa restrictions, which is unfortunately a little bit out of your hands. So the best thing you can do is really do your research and figure out what exactly the criteria is to gain the visa, how long it will take, and just the entire process so that you can be prepared. That being said, working abroad can still lead to a really fulfilling and satisfying career. So there are a lot of things, some small things that you can do right now while you're still in school and preparing for your future career. So the first of which is to start taking some internationally focused courses at your university. Some of them might count for your major, which is great. Some of them might count for your your general electives that you need to graduate, but I would definitely recommend that you take a look at your university's course catalog and look at all the internationally focused courses that they offer that are available to you and that you can take to really gain those knowledges and the skills from these courses. I would also recommend learning a second or maybe even a third language. There are a lot of resources out there that are providing free language lessons like Duolingo, Memrise, HelloTalk, Hi Native, and then of course a more comprehensive language learning tool would be Rosetta Stone, which you have access to through your virtual international internship. You have 3 months of language lessons through Rosetta Stone, so I would absolutely encourage that you take advantage of that. And some perks of learning a second or third language is that people who are bilingual report having higher salaries, just more job opportunities in general that are available to them. They actually live healthier lives, and some reports have shown that being bilingual can help you or helps slow signs of aging. And it also brings higher intellect and cognitive flexibility. One of the most important things that you can do is your research. Just answer these really critical questions behind why you want to work abroad and what is most important to you before you pursue it. So really, what is your motive behind working internationally? Do you want to do it for the long term? Do you want to do it for the short term? How will it impact your career? You know, why do you want to do this in the first place? Also, what countries and cities are you willing to move or frequently travel to? Do you have specific places? Are you open to everything? Are there any hard no's that you definitely don't want to go to? What types of companies or specific companies would you want to work for and would you be happy working for? What types of roles would you excel at? What are the qualifications needed to work in a specific country? And what is the average salary? Is it competitive to what you would make in your home country? Is it more or less? And then finally, what are the visa requirements to work in these locations? Another big one that you need to be prepared for. So doing your research is, really important to help you prepare and plan for a global career. It's also really important to establish relationships within your industry as early on as possible, because the connections that you make can really impact your future career by opening up opportunities for you, allowing you to meet new people, etc. So one easy first step would be to reach out to some alumni. Your career services office would be a great resource to do this. I'm sure they would be happy to introduce you and connect you with some alumni that are working internationally and that they can provide some insights for you. You should also attend some local networking events that are in your home city because you never know who knows who. Everybody has different connections from around the world, so someone can introduce you to someone who can help you start your global career. It would also be beneficial to join professional groups on social media. LinkedIn is a really great resource for this, and they have professional groups for every type of industry out there and every sub-industry. And what's great about LinkedIn is that anybody from all over the world can join. So you never know who you might meet through one of these networks. And finally, reach out to your professors for connections. A lot of times your professors were actually working within the industry before they started teaching. So they most likely have past colleagues and peers that they used to work with or go to school with that they would be more than happy to introduce you to help you out. And most obviously, go overseas, of course, when you can and when we're allowed to again. This will give you a taste of what it's like to live and work abroad and to see in the first instance if it's even a good fit for you, if you have the travel bug and you definitely want to pursue this. So looking into the opportunities that your university has to offer, such as a semester short-term study abroad or interning abroad. And then there also are other opportunities that you can pursue on your own, such as a volunteer program, or if it's available to you, planning your own summer trip to see the specific places that you want to see and experience. And then also just to gain more experience in general is really important for any career, whether it's in person or locally or abroad. Just having this experience will help you further determine your career goals. And so one way to do this is to complete an internship locally or remotely to learn more, to really refine your skills and to build your resume in a specific industry, which may make you more desirable to global employees. You can also look into joining industry-specific or professional development organizations that are in your local city, again, to help build your networks and to gain more knowledge in the area. You can also look into volunteering at local organizations and meeting people that way. Or if it's available to you based on the industry that you're pursuing, you can look into freelance work to build your resume that way. And then finally, my last tip that I have for you is to tailor your resume to the country that you are looking to apply to. So looking into the business culture of that country and what they're really looking for when they receive resumes. So for example, on the Japanese resume, something that you should include that may not be very obvious to other countries is a photo, your age, and your gender. And on a German resume, it should be strictly factual information, no embellishments, only the essential information that's needed. And in South Africa, it's actually customary to send out a brief profile to an employer first, and then if they are interested, they'll ask you to send over a more comprehensive CV. So make sure you're doing some research and looking into what's customary to put on a resume for a specific country. And then furthermore, on your resume, make sure that you are highlighting your transferable skills. So not just simply stating what your past experiences are and what you've done, but really highlighting what you've gained from these experiences and what you've learned and why it's going to make you a more valuable candidate. And finally, consider creating an international section on your resume. This will highlight all the experiences that you have traveling, interning, abroad, but do make sure that they are focused on professional experiences and that they do relate to the career or the job that you are applying for. So now I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Jess, we did already get a great question from Michelle. And what the question is about is, what is the best place to learn about the culture of a specific country, especially when we're looking for international company career in that country? And so what I've given so far is to look at expat websites and tips they give for moving to that country. I've also noted to look into the culture of the country, decide if it's collectivist or individualistic, and see how that would impact the work. And then finally, to get direct firsthand experience. So whether that's asking your colleague for a cup of tea remotely and to ask more questions, or watching videos or more. Jess, do you have any other any other tips on how to learn about the culture of a specific country?
Yeah, I mean, besides actually going there on a trip for either an internship or a study abroad, I would maybe look on YouTube to see if you can find any videos about the culture, or even watching any programming that's designed for that culture to help you just see firsthand how people interact with one another and certain social cues and behaviors that you can see.
Great. And Jess, I have a question for you. Knowing that COVID is making a lot of international travel difficult right now, what is the number one tip you'd give to a student looking to gain an international career in the future? How can they prepare from home right now?
Yeah, well, the most obvious answer, I would definitely recommend that you reach out and connect more with your supervisor and any employees that you feel close with. Outside of your dedicated internship, if you feel comfortable doing this, ask them for a couple questions to connect over video chat and to see if they'd be willing to answer them for you, so that you can learn more about it outside of your dedicated internship. I think that is probably the most obvious and the easiest way for you guys to do that, since you have that resource available to you right now.
Great. And I haven't seen any other questions come into the Q&A. Does anyone else want to just type in a quick question or ask anything about the different opportunities for international careers, how to get there, or any of the great tips that Jess just provided? We haven't really talked about the potential obstacles that might face us for future abroad employees. And so do you have any addresses to kind of the obstacles they would take, or I'm happy to take this as well.
Yeah, Jillian, I know that you worked a lot in Vietnam, so maybe if you have any insight on that, I'll let you take that one.
So I have been very lucky to have moved to 5 different countries and to get work in 5 different countries. The work, to be fair, when I started my university career, I chose international business as my concentration and major, thinking it had international in the title, and of course that would lead to international experiences and travel. And what I found was a lot of the opportunities actually made you work with international outlooks, but it didn't actually allow me to do that travel. And so I had to actually pivot to an industry that did more. And so as Jess noted, accounting doesn't actually seem very international, but a lot of that can include a lot of domestic and international travel when you're working for bigger accounting firms. Companies that you might not think are so international are. But some of the obstacles that come is, one, anytime you're looking for a job, your network will be the method to get you there. If you are moving to a new country, you have no network. So trying to build a network prior to arriving there is going to be one of the biggest obstacles to overcome, especially at a distance. So really take time to nurture that, to build a network in the country you'd like to go to so that you have direct contacts there. 2, make sure that, as Jess noted, you adapt your resume to the location you're going to. Anytime you're applying from afar and asking to move to a new country, any employer is going to see that as a red flag. There's lots of different barriers, right? I would have to get you a visa. I would have to make sure that you were ready and willing to stay in the country that I am hiring you for, that you're up to the challenge and the really difficult challenge of not just adapting to the work culture, but moving to a new country. Moving to a new country isn't easy, and it takes a lot of risk, and it takes a lot of time to adapt to that. So if you are applying to my company and I'm outside of where you currently reside, I might see that as a barrier. I might wait until you're actually moved to that country and apply. And that can be really tricky because either A, you need the visa or the funds to get you to the country firsthand, or B, you need to be able to take that, and B, you need to be able to take that risk. And so that goes back to that networking. If you don't have the network to get you a job before you go, you might have to take the leap and go first. The final thing of a potential obstacle is just visas. A lot of countries really kind of put emphasis and priority on hiring their own internal employers. So they really can't look outside of the country to apply. And so remote work is allowing to break down some of those visa barriers and allow a different staff to be contractors, or if a company has multiple different locations that you can really get into. So if you are working for an international corporation, you could always start in that one company, and then after 2 years, usually they'll allow you to transfer to another. And that is a way to kind of circumnavigate these visa restrictions. So some of the potential barriers you're going to face is, 1, you don't have a network in country. 2, the risk the employer perceives of you being an out-of-country contact is going to be high. And 3, there's going to be visa regulations. And so you're going to have to acknowledge those 3 and try to work within that. And that, once again, goes back to finding a network. If you want to join a global company, that's going to be a different step, because first you need to really hone in on your skills, right? You can't just pick any global company. Global companies work in multiple industries and fields. So first, make sure that your resume and your experience aligns with being an expert in your field and industry. And then identify certain global companies that would really work and match with your skills and suits. If you have a resume that has no work experience on it, your resume is not going to stand out to a global company. They really need you to get work experience and to clearly define that work experience on your resume with 2 to 4 bullet points of all the work that you've done. Then a global company will most likely want to hire you in the country of origin first. Like I just said, an international corporation can transfer you from country to country after 2 years of work much easier than it can hiring external staff. So you really want to think about, is my company existing in my country, and is there future growth and lateral? And then 2, you want to think outside the box. I have in the past not worked for global companies that have a global footprint and have allowed me to do immense travel and cross collaboration with different countries. And so that has been allowing me to do some great work of international career, but it wasn't what I thought, because they were small companies. They were 10 or less employers, but the work was so varied and the contacts and the clients were so varied, I was able to do international work. So just because the company doesn't have a global footprint, their clients might have a global footprint, and allowing you to do international work. Jess, here is a great question for you, actually. We have any advice on connecting with people in order to get a job? So potentially, what advice would you give to someone looking to do an informational interview, or just broadening their network?
Yeah, absolutely. Informational interviews are really great ways to get a foot in the door and to meet new people. So I would first look at who are your existing contacts, right? So you have your supervisor, you have your professors at your university. Maybe you have some neat connections on LinkedIn. So look at these people first and see if they would be willing to talk to you a little bit more, allow you to pick their brain about working internationally, and then ask them if they can refer you to somebody else in their network, so that you can then further grow your network and make new connections, which will hopefully be beneficial to you down the road. And secondly, I'd also recommend that you join any local professional development organizations, or ones that are specific to your industry. A lot of times they'll host networking events or workshops or events of those nature. So another great way for you to meet people, gain more skills and knowledge, and to really grow your networks.
Wonderful. And then a final question is, what is the big challenge you've had during your international work, and how did you overcome this? I'm guessing this is a question for me because of my international work. And I would say the 2 biggest challenges I had was, 1, adapting to living in a new place. Moving to a new city that you don't have a network in, personally and professionally, is lonely. It takes 6 months to a year to get back to where you had a network of friends and colleagues to reach out to for fun and for work support. And that can be really hard and challenging as you adapt and learn new routines, new customs, and more. And within international work, that was the same thing, adapting to the culture and pace of the country's workforce. So I was very, very lucky in each country that I moved to. I was readily able to find work because I had past internships and work experiences on my resume, and I was able to articulate my transferable skills. But I moved first from the US to New Zealand, and while the language was not a barrier, there was cultural differences. It was a much slower pace in New Zealand, not a bad slower, but a different. Where in the US, it was much more bam, bam, bam. I had to adjust to when I was going to get responses, how the response was going to happen, and what they were really looking for. take on New Zealand, I then moved to Vietnam, where once again I was working, but now I had a language barrier, so things could get lost in translation. And I had a huge cultural barrier where it was much more of a vertical hierarchy, and there was a lot more stratifications within the management style. So I had to navigate that. So working within different countries, one of the biggest barriers was really navigating the personal culture of the city as well as the professional culture of the workplace. And then of course the other big barrier is just visas, right? The big challenge is, can I get a visa to work here? How long will that last? And what happens when things like a global pandemic, COVID happens? Am I now able to leave the country and return? Not a lot of people right now working internationally are able to return to their home country with the hope of returning back home, right? There's a lot of borders closed. So if they're going to leave, they're leaving until the pandemic is over. And that can be really tricky to overcome. All right, Jess, it looks like we are out of questions, so you can wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I really hope that you learned something and that this was a valuable presentation for you. I would just say to stay tuned for more information about the next Global Employability Expert Series, which will be on July 29th, so 2 weeks from today. We'll be sending out some information about that within the next week or so. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us today, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.